When I was just 12 years old, one of the most vicious and violent crimes ever committed in the history of the country was committed. I happened to be in the house that night, and one of the most important people in my life, my older foster brother, would be charged with the murders of our foster parents. And crazy enough, he might be innocent, but before my life was this chaotic, things were a lot different. Before foster care, before any of this, I was the child of two very, very successful entrepreneurs. My mom and dad, they worked hard, and I had just about everything that a 10-year-old could want. But quite frankly, they loved their job more than they loved their son. To make a long story short, they went on a business trip overseas and they left me with the nanny for an entire weekend. And what was supposed to be a couple of days turned into a couple of weeks. And before I knew it, CPS was picking me up and they placed me in the foster care. Over the next few years, I would bounce around from foster home to foster home, and up until this point for a while now, I haven't had any stability. And then when I was around 11 and a half, I met Mr. and Mrs. Evergreen, which at first they seemed like the two sweetest old people you could ever meet. And they would become my permanent foster parents. But little did I know, once they took me home, the real troubles in my life were just starting to begin. 15 other foster children. Add me, that's 16, and you add them two, that's a total of 18 heads in one home. It was like a jungle. 16 kids, 3-bedroom house, who were gonna sleep on the floor, the bed. It was absolute chaos. Oh, and breakfast, it was first come, first serve. If you weren't at that table at 5:30 when Miss Margaret got done cooking, boy, you weren't gonna eat that day. And of course, being a new foster kid, I got treated like an outsider day one by everybody, except for one. He looked out for me. My big brother Marquise. Now, he was the oldest out of everybody, 17, and within the next year he was about to age out and basically be on his own. But while the other kids was teasing me, making fun of me, jumping me at times, and just doing me so bad, he looked out for me and made sure I was good. And like I said, our foster parents, they were old, up in their 80s, so around 8 or 9 p.m. they went to bed asleep. And around that time, they would literally lock all of us in our rooms. You were stuck with 5-6 other people in one room all night long. Now, like I said, Keith was the oldest. He'd been there for a while. Every night when everyone would go to sleep, he'd pick the lock and he'll get out. He'll be gone all night. Now, every time Keith snuck out, I would always be awake. I couldn't sleep, and he knew that. So every time he came back around 4 or 5 in the morning, he would always bring me my favorite candy back from the corner store. Time went on. Living in the house with 15 other kids would become the norm. But one day, everything would change for all of us, for the worse, forever. One day we were outside in the backyard. Everybody out there, just another normal day. And one of the other foster kids, he took off. He hopped the back gate and we ain't see him for days. Bro, we didn't know what happened to him. He hopped that fence and he ran and he didn't stop until we couldn't see him at all. And about 2 weeks later, they finally caught him. And CPS brought him back to the foster home. And when I tell you, our foster parents were livid. We'd fight over food, who get to use the bathroom first, the bed. Like, we'd fight over everything, but running away, that was just unheard of. Later on that night, our foster father unlocked our door, came in the room, and he just went to wailing on Max. He was just beating him for about 10 minutes straight with a belt buckle. I'll never forget the sound of his screams. That night shook everybody up for a little minute. Days had gone by. 16 kids in one house, and it was just quiet. Now, TJ is one of our other foster brothers. Him and Max were joining at the hip 24/7. They were like blood brothers. Now, could you imagine being in our situation and the person you're closest to, you just got to sit there, watch him get beaten, listen to his pain. Now, Max, he physically recovered. He wasn't never really the same, didn't talk as much as usual, but TJ, it did more damage to him than anybody somehow. But just when we thought the nightmare was over and things were getting back to normal, it would get even worse. One morning, we woke up, the sun was already out, and our doors were still unlocked, which was pretty unusual. Usually, we wake up early, doors already unlocked, we go to the table and try to get some breakfast in. And I noticed Marquise wasn't here either. I know he snuck out last night, but I guess he didn't come back, which is weird. But a little while back, Marquise did teach me how to pick the room door locked, just in case of emergencies. There were no sign of my foster parents, so I went by to check their room. I opened the door, I walked in, and what I seen would scar me for life. I had never seen so much blood in one place in my life. I just stood there, didn't say nothing, with a blank look. One of the other foster kids walked in and he just screamed. About 15 minutes later, the police and CPS had arrived and they split us all up. It was everywhere. The news, the papers, everybody in the country knew what had happened in that house. But even though that situation was tragic, something good came out of it for me. I didn't get sent to another foster home. Somebody actually came and adopted me. A really nice family. They knew what I had been through and they just wanted to give me the best life possible. And they knew everything about my background and my history with my real parents. And even though I had recovered from that situation, life had gotten a little bit better, I still couldn't help but think, what happened happened to Marquise. They didn't talk about it with me much, but I had access to the internet and I did a little bit of research, and I found out that they picked up Marquise for the murders. And even though I was in denial, it made sense. Marquise was the only one other than myself who knew how to pick the locks, and he wasn't there that morning. Now some time had passed, and I found out Marquise was sentenced to life in prison. I couldn't believe it. Now I begged and begged my foster parents for years to let me go visit them, but they didn't think it was a good idea with all the progress I had made, and looking back, they probably were right. Now I waited years. As soon as I turned 18, I went to go visit Keith in prison. And right around this time, I had received a full ride scholarship to Kent State, so I had some good news to tell my big bro, and it kind of made me feel good. But before I can say anything, we sat down after not seeing or hearing anything from each other for the past 6 years, and the first thing that came out of his mouth, it just blew my mind. He said, "LeBron, I didn't even do it. I wasn't even there that night." I said, "Keith, it's okay, bro. I understand why you did it. It wasn't right, but I understand." Now, obviously, as a 17-year-old kid with no family, no support, no anything or anybody, he couldn't get a good lawyer. They interrogated him for 20 straight hours. Now, eventually, throughout that time, he would confess to the murders. Keith told me there was video evidence that the police held back, that he wasn't anywhere near the crib when everything happened, and it might prove his innocence. Ever since the visit, my main focus has been to get in a better position to be able to help my brother, get him a lawyer, prove his innocence, get him out. When I got my scholarship here to Kent State, I just wanted to play football to stay busy and get a degree and be something in life. But now with all these NIL opportunities being on the table, I can be in a position to help him now and not later. I mean, I could ball out for the next couple of years and potentially go to the league, but I don't even want to wait that long. I want to get him out now. So far this season, I've been balling at a really high level, and as a team, we've exceeded expectations so far, but we got to go above and beyond if we really want to get those opportunities. So my plan is simple. I ball out, we win games, NIL opportunities line up at the door, and I use that money to afford a good lawyer to get Keith out of prison. But being here at a school like Kent State comes with its challenges. I'm not in Ohio State or Alabama or Texas. I have to ball out and create opportunities where there are none. So we have to win out the remainder of the regular season. Plain and simple. If we don't, my entire plan could fall apart. Right now, Miami, Ohio is ranked number 1 in our division. They're 3-0, but we're 2-0 as well, and we play them within the next couple of weeks, and we could definitely hand them their first L. The overall conference, Miami at 1, Eastern Michigan at 2, Western Michigan at 3, and we're sitting at number 4. A lot would have to fall in place in order for us to take over the entire conference. Now, taking a look at the remaining 3 games on our schedule, they're all conference games. If we win out and a few teams lose, we could see one of those teams in the conference championship. Up until this point, I had never taken football so serious. Even throughout high school, the only reason I played was to make my adopted parents proud, but now it's straight business. So far, I have about 3 NIL deals lined up: Body Armor, Kellogg, and Tesla. Now, I know Kellogg sound crazy, but the amount of times I post my daily bowls of cereal on my IG story, they've taken notice. Keep in mind, nothing is official yet. I'm still broke, but depending on how I end the season, what stat categories I lead, what awards I might win, that will determine everything. And everything has to fall in place the right way, because I talked to a lawyer and his asking price is outrageous. $300K. $300,000. That's a lot of money, but taking a look at these NIL contracts is very much doable. After hearing some of the facts, it just makes me think, if Marquise wasn't there that night and he couldn't have possibly done it, then who could have? It could have been anybody in that house, but if we narrow things down, it could have been one of 2 people. Now, taking a look at Max, he had the biggest motive. He got beaten terribly, embarrassed, and done absolutely wrong. Like I said before, TJ was torn, bro. He wasn't the same. He didn't look the same. He didn't even talk for days. But right now, the most important thing is who was on the case. Why would they ignore clear-cut evidence that he didn't do the crime? Taking a look at his case file is clear-cut and obvious. Keith is just a victim of the corrupt justice system. Coming toward the end of the season, we're on a winning streak. I'm leading in multiple stat categories, and I'm a finalist for a lot of big awards. And over the weekend, I received a few major phone calls that can land me a huge NIL deal. A 6-figure deal with Kellogg and a lifetime supply of just about any cereal you can think of. Up to $500K. That's enough for the lawyer and to have a little something for myself and for my boy when he get out. This win over Ohio will definitely be major for our team. We'll finish the regular season 9-3, and we'll see somebody in that conference championship game. I've been balling out this season though, putting up pretty good highlights, but I got to do something that's going to land me on ESPN. So Kellogg will come to me and put the deal on the table, signed and ready to go. So late in the 3rd quarter, I secured my 7th or 8th pick of the season, took it all the way back, 75 yards. If that ain't major, I don't know what is. And just like I thought, after finishing off the regular season strong, the NIL deal is signed and sealed, money is in the bank. And on an even higher note, I talked to the lawyer and he told me he'd already been looking into the case before I even paid him. And after taking a look at the file, the lawyer said there's a 0% chance Marquise should have been picked up for this and he's gonna get him off. Keith's lawyer is trying to do everything he can to get the case dismissed and get him home as soon as possible. It's just crazy. I can't believe something that I did for fun turned into basically a mini career, and I'm in a position to be able to help somebody I love. And with all the recent success, it got me thinking, can I be one of the best strong safeties to ever play college football? Can I make it to the league? And what's even crazier, Marquise has a 6-year-old daughter. I guess all them nights of sneaking out the house, he was out there handling business going crazy. After looking out and being there for me when I needed him the most, it's gonna feel good to return the favor in the biggest way. We fell short to Western Michigan in the MAC Conference Championship game, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm receiving dubs in life. It's been a few weeks, and right now Marquise is going through the process of getting released from prison, so all is good on that end. Oh, and they ended up picking up TJ and Max for the murders. We thought it was a one-man job. Turns out they both did it together. Justice was served.